Hey guys, Travis Cook here of Learning How to Think, and it's the 27th of September 2020, and it's the day after the mass protest happened in London. And if you haven't already, check out my video which I made yesterday, and it has all the live action footage and gives you a good overview of what happened and shows you how brutal the police were, and also how the protesters, they were kicking ass. They were really getting things rolling and shaking. And it's quite interesting how little police there was, though. I mean, compared to the one last week, there was a lot more police. So I don't know if it was for optics. They put less police in, so it looks like the protesters are, surrounding them, and I'm not sure. It's quite curious as to why the protest that happened on the 19th, which had less people there, had more police presence. Then this week there was way more people but less police. I'm not sure what's going on there. I know there was some higher ups in the police community, high-ranking officials and officers or whatever. They were against a lot of the new lockdown policies. So I don't know if it was just the police are starting to resist this, or if it was, some sort of optic reason. They wanted to show that they wanted to catch some sort of angle of the protesters surrounding the police inside like a mob. I don't know. It's curious as to why there was more police when there was less protesters. Now there's less police when there was more protesters. I can't quite get my head around that. But as you would have seen in my last video, there was a German man who was speaking there, and he was arrested. Dr Heiko Schöning. I can't quite pronounce his second name. So he was arrested, and he had got that footage, the active patriot court, of him getting put into the back of the police van. And but today we have this little beautiful clip for you, of him being released.
Kochani, yes! Yay! Well done!
So there you go. Quite a triumphant moment, and he does go on to talk for quite a while, so I'll include the link to the full video of him talking, and you can watch that at your discretion, see what he has to say. Seems like a very well-rounded man. I do love the Germans. I love their personality and their way they approach certain matters. They're very great. They're great people. I can't believe we once had a war with them at some point. But yeah, so I was very happy to see him get released. And there was even a letter from the medical community, supposedly from the doctors, saying he should be released because it's unlawful for him to be detained and all this sort of stuff. So it's interesting to look at that. And then also I just thought I'd build upon the hypocrisy side of things, because as you can see, the police themselves were partaking in some hypocrisy because the fact is it actually was optional for the police to kneel. Like, it wasn't like they were told, it was their choice. But I imagine yesterday they were told, obviously, they had to go in there and do this, and they were told to probably use brute force, and it's like, well, who would have told them to do that? And from what I understand, it's Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, as well as maybe Boris. I'm not sure how much Boris has to say of this directly, but they're sort of the ones that pull the strings of the Metropolitan Police Force. And now check this absolute fucking hypocrisy out, right? If it wasn't bad enough to see the police officers kneeling for the protesters for the Black Lives Matter protests whilst they're coming in with riot gear for the anti-lockdown protests, you actually have the Mayor of London engaging in the most fucking outright hypocrisy. So for the Black Lives Matter protests, he supports it. He's all for it. He doesn't say anything horrible about it. He's actually fully supporting these protests. And then when there's the anti-lockdown protests, he has this to say. And he completely goes against it. So, this is unacceptable. I urge all protesters to leave now. Large gatherings are banned for a reason. You are putting the safety of our city at risk. Violence towards police officers will not be tolerated, and perpetrators will feel the full force of the law. Well, that's kind of funny, because when it was the Black Lives Matter protest, it didn't seem to quite get the same response from the loving mayor of London. So the protest response from the Black Lives Matter for Sadiq Khan to the thousands of Londoners who protested peacefully today I stand with you and I share your anger and your pain. George Floyd's brutal killing must be a catalyst for change worldwide. No country, city, police service or institution can absolve itself of the responsibility to do better. We must stand together and root out racism wherever it is found. What the fuck? I mean, check out the picture as well. Like, check out this picture I found of the Black Lives Matter protest that happened. And this is what he's supporting. And look at this. All of these people together. Do they look like they're social distancing? No. So why the fuck is a Black Lives Matter protest acceptable, Mr. Sadiq? And why is an anti-lockdown protest not acceptable? I wonder what's going on there, huh? I wonder what's going on there. It almost seems like there's an agenda afoot. You're allowed to protest, but only if we agree with what you're protesting. That seems to be the message right there, huh? So I just thought I'd throw that in there because we got to keep hammering these politicians whenever they do shit like this, because this is just unacceptable. How can you be for one protest and not be for another? It's yet another conflict of interest, more hypocrisy, as if Valiant's having 600,000 shares in the vaccine company that he's also just happens to be promoting the vaccines wasn't enough of a conflict of interest. We just have this all over the place, folks. So when it's that blatant and that obvious, I think it's great to have a little look into it, and we can just see the outright corruption. So I'm very optimistic about how this is going to proceed, especially given the response from the public over these protests and just how it all seems to be rolling out. Again, the rebellious Tory MPs, they're going to vote the Renewal Corona Act. The Emergency Coronavirus Act 2020 is up for renewal in a few days, so we will keep our eyes on that and see what happens. Even Rishi is threatening to quit because of this, because he would say it makes his job impossible if the country's locked down. I mean, can you imagine being in charge of the finances if the country's locked down? You wouldn't want to fucking do that. And I'm starting to think Rishi's like the good cop to Boris's bad cop, so I don't know if there's a reason there, like, is this public perception being built up for Rishi, to be seen as this good guy, whilst maybe Boris is seen as the bad cop, and then he takes the flak. But maybe then Rishi, holy shit, I keep mixing those up. Rishi's going to then be put into the Prime Minister position because he's built this public persona of being this good guy. Maybe that's what's happening, or maybe it's actually pretty legit that he's having a fuck enough of all this shit like the rest of us. Who knows? But for now, I'll keep it at that, and I'll see you next time, guys.